back.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, we're excited you're here. We're going to be talking about the golden referral ratio. If you want your practice, solo or group practice, to grow, period, and in this next year, we're going to be really road mapping a couple of the nuts and bolts in terms of the volume of inquiries you need, where the practices we work with, where they get them, some practical tactics, and especially if you're a larger group practice who needs in the tune of hundreds of 100, 300, 500 plus monthly inquiries to keep your team full. We'll be sharing a couple like high volume capacity things at the end today as well. So with that, let's dive in. Attilio, tell us a little bit about why we need to think about how many inquiries are needed per clinician on our team.
Yeah, so this is a leading indicator for your consistency. Rarely in this imperfect world will you have one phone call equals one new client. First of all, I think that's unethical to have that situation happen all the time forever. And second of all, it's just not real, right? This isn't a perfect world. It doesn't work like that. We need to dispel the idea that you will have perfect referrals, well-read referrals, or referrals who even know what insurance they have or whether they want to use insurance or not. The truth is that we're dealing with buyers who don't buy a new therapist frequently, so they don't know the process. We're dealing with buyers who don't know their level of acuteness. We're dealing with buyers who maybe even try to self-diagnose and come in for one thing, but maybe need help with something else.
Yeah.
In a TikTok social media driven world where there's a lot of information out there, it opens up confusion and it opens up a lot of wishy-washy situations. And so we just need to get used to and get comfortable with working and talking to more people than actually become clients of ours. And so
Yeah.
the idea that we need to look at this number of referrals, number of leads, is sort of the leading indicator if you are going to succeed in a consistent way in this space for the long term.
And before we talk about the golden ratio, I want to go down one rabbit hole is very much connected with this, and that is not all like inquiry sources or lead sources are created equal. And I think that's important to note because if you are a small solo practice or a brand new group practice and you're used to all of these community relationships referring into you, or you're used to like a trickle from Psychology Today and like that's what you have, those inquiries might convert at a higher volume because of where they're coming from. They have a lot more trust. They're being referred to by a trusted provider. We want as many of those as possible. But when we start going into the categories of website strangers, social media, paid ads, and things that are scalable that will get you in front of a large audience of people that want therapy services, these are strangers. This is what's called cold traffic. And these people don't convert one to one in the way that Attilio was just talking about. So know that the larger you get, the more we have to go after cold traffic, people who don't have this deep trusted relationship with who's referring them to you or awareness of you. And that presents the reason we need a higher volume of referrals. You truly want to grow and get to 5, 10, 50 plus clinicians.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the golden referral relationship ratio. Geez. So with this process, we after just looking at so many therapy practices, you probably want between 8 and 12 inquiries coming in per clinician on your team. So if you do the math, for every 10 clinicians on your team, we probably need somewhere between 100 and 120 inquiries on a monthly basis for every 10 counselors.
Yeah. And that number might seem kind of shocking to you, right? You're like, I never need that many. Um,
Or I
and
never
maybe
get
that's
that
true.
many.
Or I never get that many. Yeah. I never need that many. I never get that many. And I think there's kind of some math behind all of this. So at the end of the day, this is kind of a numbers game, and maybe you quote unquote don't need that many, right? Your therapists stay full, and that might be an indicator that you've got maybe a low what's called churn rate, right? It's low churn where your therapists, once they get a client, they just stick around for a long time. And so this is one of those situations where there's a lot of like gears in sort of this system.
Yeah.
And so the way to future proof it and the way to just make sure that you nail it is by hitting these higher lead numbers.
Yeah. So when we calculate things like inquiry volume, close ratio, churn, a couple other numbers, we use what we call a practice growth curve calculator for the practices inside of our program. And all we're trying to do is, because not all numbers are created equal, cash pay and insurance practices experience different things, service sets, if you're outpatient, if you're EMDR, like there's going to be a different relationship here. I'd say that 8 to 12 referral ratio is the gold standard that we see most successful across the most amount of practices. However, it could be more or less for you, and we want to calculate that individually for you. Because if you can walk away with confidence and say, hey, if I have 10 counselors on my team and I need to get 6 inquiries to be at a growth rate that I'm happy with per clinician on my team, great, that's 60 inquiries a month. And we have a very direct, custom measurable target for your practice specifically. And now we can do the hard work of hitting that number.
Yeah, I like that. The hard work for it. Do we want to go into maybe what it takes to get that?
Let's just pause briefly before we share some nuts and bolts on how to generate some of those numbers. And I'll just say, if you aren't slowing down and saying, is my practice in its current place contracting or expanding? Like, you're going in one of those directions, right? If you look at the next 4 months of runway, will you have more inquiries than what will fill out your current team? And if the answer is no, you're not on a growth curve, you're on a downward spiral. And so I think sometimes practice owners are surprised when they don't grow, or they're surprised when their practice isn't heading in the directions that they want, but they haven't gone back to the first principle of just inquiry volume, much less everything else. And the math could tell you really quickly whether your practice is going to grow over the next 3 to 6 months from this perspective.
I'll leave just another really quick note on that same topic. Um, if you're not taking actions on things that can reasonably get you new inquiries, there's a likelihood that you're headed towards a contraction or like that downward spiral. Too
Yeah.
many times, I mean, I had several conversations yesterday where it was just like, yeah, we stopped doing the thing back in January, and then they showed up in our program, and I was like, well, why didn't you just keep doing the thing you were doing? And so keep that in mind. If you're not actually taking the actions, or you have the thing set up but you're not like doing it, you're not like spending it, or you're not so keep that in mind. Just because you have the thing, marketing is a habit, right?
Yeah.
Getting these inquiries is a habit. Networking is a habit. Providing great service so that you can get referrals or create advocates is a habit. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, I was on a coaching call yesterday, and we were talking about like the sales and intake process, but it actually applies to all parts of your business. Are we trying to build something new to promote growth that doesn't exist yet? Or are we trying to implement, fix, or just go back to what we already know to do and get our team to help with that as well? So sometimes something like developing community referral relationships, it isn't that you didn't do the work at one point, it's the fact that we stopped doing the work somewhere along the way and the ground dried up. We have to water our plants, otherwise they die.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what watering our plants look like. I really want to talk about 3 categories of success here, because these are the things that drive just so much of the traffic. There are lots of ways to market your practice. If you find or you see a big primary source that generates a high volume outside of these 3 categories, maybe leave a comment or a bump. These are just the ones that we talk a lot about in our process and programs, but also we see drive the bulk of the success. Search engine optimization, paid ads, and organic referral partners. Let's talk about search engine optimization, and let's go starting point, ending point for that.
Yeah, a couple quick notes about SEO. So this is getting ranked on Google by being a trustworthy or sort of peer-reviewed website, right? This is other people think you're authoritative and you've got great content and context for search terms, and so Google is putting you up on the top to give you a shot to get some of that traffic. And so some of the things that make a lot of sense for local traffic are going to be reviews. And so some of you guys are like, wait, I can't ask my clients for reviews. You're correct. You should not ask your clients for reviews, but you can ask your friends, family, peers, mentors, vendors. You can get creative with it. Ask them for character references in the form
Yeah.
of a review. You're
And
going
if
to
you
get clients. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you search in our Facebook group, we did a big training on this last year that's still accessible.
Yeah. And you'll naturally have clients that will leave you reviews because especially if you have like in-person sessions or anything like that, they're gonna look up your address and they're just gonna hit the button to use your GPS, and after seeing you 5 or 6 times they're gonna want to leave a review maybe. And so you may have clients that leave reviews as well. Best practices for that is to not reply. You do not, that is a HIPAA violation to reply and double confirm that um, they are a client of yours, so please don't reply there. Next, after reviews, putting some content on your website is going to be really, really helpful. So doing things in the Chat GPT age, Google knows Chat GPT exists, guys, and so they know how easy it is to spin up a 500 word blog. So in this new age, things are changing, and what we're seeing and what other big businesses are seeing inside of the mental health space is that practices that are using video content with written content on their websites are ranking 50 times more than just having written content. So,
Yeah.
what this means for you is maybe deploy a video strategy. But if you're like, I don't know if I want to do the whole video song and dance, maybe get creative about how you handle it, or just try your best to do it with written word, like old school
Yeah.
blogging, right? Try your best to do it that way.
Higher volume or better volume or both if you can is in this scenario. I did a practice audit yesterday and I just kind of made the blunt recommendation. I'm like, you probably need to be doing like 2,000, 3,000 word articles, like 8 to 12 of those a month if you want to hit your growth goals in the way that you described with SEO. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's just more volume than you would expect or you'd find comfortable.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. And I think my final note on this is you guys are licensed professionals. Like you're a hot topic in the content creation world, and I think you should see yourself like that. People
Yeah.
want information from licensed professionals,
Yeah.
and not only that, but if you find a good way to wrap your information in a way that's consumable and not so clinical, people will reward you with eyeballs. They're going to reward you with attention. They're going to come to you from social media, but also in the form of press. The
Yeah.
press wants to hear from you, especially if you have an interesting take on something.
And sometimes it's just how you name it. Maybe call them therapy framework, right? In terms of your titles instead of blogs, my weekly therapy framework, or articles, or help guides, whatever you want. Like, no one wants to read a quote unquote blog anymore. Frame them appropriately, right? Use some marketing language and vernacular, make them more shareable, make them more palatable. And then I also gave this best practice recommendation, whether it's for your clinicians, if you're a group practice, or other providers in the area, have them guest blog for you, meaning don't put all the burden on yourself, feature other people's expert opinions, and use your audience and your traffic source to feature them and to work on that. So let's talk a little bit about paid ads, Google ads, Facebook and Instagram ads. There are other categories. Those are the two that we're still primarily using with our practices right now.
Yeah. So as far as ads go, advertising is a form of sort of pay to play, right? You're renting the billboard. And so in a lot of ways, this is the way to get fast results. This is a lot of way to get fast um, information back from the marketplace. It'll tell you real quick if you're not working well.
Yeah.
So we really, really like paid ads. And whether you're doing something through Google or through Facebook or through like the Meta platform, they both work and they're both equally kind of bad, right? You're dealing with cold audiences.
Yeah.
However, once you learn and understand how to deal with these cold audiences, you're off to the races. Um,
Yeah.
I can tell you that any practice can crack that code if they are sort of open to it.
And I probably had 7 or 8 conversations this past month where the situation was someone had hired a Google ad or a Facebook ad agency or company. Things weren't going well, and they just had no idea what to do, because they could only trust the process and the opinion of that ads agency, and they're like, "Give it more time, give it more budget." So I think one of the best things you can do, even if long term you have someone on your team or you hire a vendor to, like, run the ads for you, is understand basics of first principles of what will make ad campaigns successful. What is your part as the practice owner in terms of auditing campaigns, of understanding if your numbers are good, some of those things. It's not fun, it's not sexy, it's not like good news for you right now, but if you're kind of like avoiding what it takes to like keep a clean home clean, and you just like shove it all in the closet and you hope someone else takes care of it, and you never define definitions or intentions or kind of dig into this rabbit hole a little bit, it's going to be impossible to manage a marketing company or someone on your team successful in this category, because you'll just be fully ignorant. It will be like they speak a foreign language for you and you have no conversational aptitude. And so for those practice owners that I spoke with this past month, some of the work that we've been doing with them is to help build out frameworks from the owner and the leadership perspective, even if they aren't the button pushers on the specific actions, campaigns, keywords, and some of those things. Do you know the information needed to always make your campaigns successful and make paid ads profitable for you?
Yeah, I might give just a couple nuts and bolts things on the ads topic since we're here. As far as advertisement go, I, my coaching call on Tuesday went down the like what's working right now for therapists, and so for Google advertisement, conversion conversion tracking and conversion ads are working. And you don't have to do any of the extra fancy Google Ads stuff. There's so for those of you who are doing Google Ads, this might be more familiar to you. If you're not doing Google Ads, I'm sorry, this might get a little jargony or technical, but there's a lot of like search networks or audience network things that you can do through Google Ads. Don't do any of those. Just do search network stuff. So those are going to be when someone searches, you just pop up right there. Okay. And then beyond that, use conversion tracking, use conversion ads. That's going to be the nuts and bolts, good stuff to do here. The things that are really important when you're looking at your click through rate, or what's now called interaction rate, that's going to be when you want to edit your keywords or your headlines. And usually you edit those if you're below a 2.5% on those interaction rates. And then as far as conversion rates, this is the sticky part. If you're not comfortable editing your website, probably
Yeah.
don't be on Google Ads, like, period. If you are not comfortable editing your website, do not be on Google Ads. Or if you can't or you don't have the ability to edit your website, probably don't do Google Ads.
Yeah.
Because the tough part about Google Ads is you want inquiries, right? You're spending a lot of money and you want inquiries, and if you're not getting inquiries, there's no point in running the ads. And so there's another number that we look at for Google, and that's going to be your conversion rate. So once you set up conversion tracking, you have a conversion rate. That's how many leads you're actually getting through your form fills or your phone calls. If that's below 10%, that's when you're going to want to be tweaking your website. So if you're like, how do I know if my copy is working? How do I know if my website flow is working? How do I know if my XYZ is working on my website? That number will tell you that you need to get more creative, that you need to change things, that you need to simplify, that you need to do whatever you need to do. And then
100%.
as far as Facebook ads goes, we've noticed sometimes you'll see really, really beautiful things on Facebook. This space does not tolerate beautiful things. It's
If you look at
very,
our
very
own
simple.
Facebook ads, they're kind of ugly. I'll be honest.
You
Intentionally.
said it, not me. No, I'm just
Hey, listen.
the,
Right. I did say it. I did say it.
the Facebook ad space in this community and for mental health services just tends to be a little old school, and that's whether you're going for old audiences or young audiences. And when I'm talking about old school, I'm talking about using a stock photo is good enough. Okay, not overcomplicating with the images, and then as far as the copy and the information that's actually on the ad, make it very direct and specific about people who would be in market for therapy services. So,
Yeah,
hey, you're having this problem. I'm a therapist to help you with that, or we have a group practice who can help with that thing. So being very direct and focusing on people who are in market for therapy services is going to be key for you there. And
definitely.
then beyond that, leave it broad. So don't try to target, don't try to nitpick and target, don't try to select like area codes or income things. That almost always doubles or triples your costs for no reason, because those
Yeah.
people are not more or less likely to buy from you. I promise.
It, yeah, it just kills the ad performance. And let's briefly talk about community and referral relationships before we talk about maybe some high volume of what's needed to like generate hundreds of inquiries on a monthly basis. So my perspective on community relationships is this is just one of the things that we could spend a lot of time talking about: the tactics, the process. I've talked about the 3x3 method here in this Facebook group before or on our YouTube channel. However, just the number one fail point is either you aren't doing it to begin with, so start, or you've stopped doing it, so start again. And sometimes it's we need to do more of it. Sometimes we need to do better outreaches or connect with better people. But it's the people who do it consistently on a weekly and monthly basis over a long period of time win in this category. You're staying top of mind. You're consistently growing that network. It's a thing that just has to add up both organically and inorganically over time. We can maybe do a longer process on networking specifically, and not go into the rabbit hole now. But I just say, ask yourself, how many people have I networked with or reached out to in the last month? That number is below 3. That maybe number, if you're a larger group practice, is below 8 or 9. We're probably just not doing enough volume. And if you say, hey, I did it 2 months last year, also not enough volume. This is a monthly activity, probably doing somewhere between 3 and 10 outreaches on a monthly basis or more.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on there. Maybe 5% of you guys are actually just really good at networking. Like just really, really good at networking, or you have a great network already. I've seen like professors come into
Yeah,
this program and they just like have a big network of people that they can kind of tap into, let them know that they're doing something cool and new, and they've got referrals. For the
and
rest of you, the 95% of you out there, it's hard work and it's supposed to be hard work. If this is something that you want to do, it's definitely a way to get, I'd consider it like high profit. Like business is built on relationships, period. And so if
yeah,
you have great relationships, you're going to have a great business. And so if you don't want to brute force it forever, find ways to create new relationships for yourself. It's going to be a great win at the end of the day. I'll also add to this that if you don't want your relationship building to be so hard, if you don't want it to be so hard, if you are creating content in some capacity and you have some type of platform that people would be interested in participating in, it makes it a lot easier to network.
yeah,
So I'll tell you
yep,
guys, um, like we have our Facebook Live and this big Facebook group. And so people want to participate with us. And so if you have something like that, it makes it really, really easy to network or create relationships because you have something valuable that other people want to participate with.
100%. When we're talking about this, we have spoken with and worked with so many practices that have reached multi seven figures in revenue just on referral relationships. We've also worked with practices that have reached multi seven figures in revenue just on paid ads or just on SEO. So I think there's a misnomer as we talk about how to generate a high volume of inquiries that you have to do it all and you have to do it all at once. So the number one takeaway, if you want to scale, is get a target number from a source that does scale. Bluntly, your psychology today is never going to generate hundreds of inquiries on a monthly basis. Maybe if you are on hundreds of listing sites, I just don't know a process or tactic Please tell me your ways if you have that for Psychology Today. However, if we're choosing a platform that can scale, all three that we mentioned so far, even social media is one that in theory can do it when we do it correctly. Put a target number for that source, aka, hey, I want 60 a month or 100 a month for my paid ads, or I want 150 a month for my SEO, and work towards generating that volume because it is possible.
Yeah. Good luck, guys. Hop onto a growth curve. Don't short yourself. Look to a bigger number and dig in deep. I don't know if I have anything
Yeah.
else I need to add there.
And I think I'll just say one last thing. We shared some volume on SEO and we shared some volume on referral generation. Let's talk about ad spend. We
Yep.
see if you really dial everything in, size of country, place, it's not country, states, processes, cities, brick and mortar, all that big variables. I'll just give you the 4 benchmarks we see. Typically, we're starting at $500 to $600 a month in ad spend, getting it to work at that ratio, and start to spend more up from there. A lot of practices in the 5 to 10 clinician size will probably land somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a month in ad spend, and that's kind of happy for that source. If you need more than that, or you're really trying to feed a team of 20, 30 plus people, maybe you're spending between that 2 and 5,000 range. And it's really when we're trying to either make it our only source of inquiries, or we're really trying to put ourselves in a fast growth curve, they would probably spend more than $5,000 a month. And that's just what we've seen. We've seen people spend 10, 20, 30,000 more on a monthly basis on ads for sure. And there's reasons for that. Size, 30, 50, 100 clinicians all dictates the stuff scales, but let's make sure it's profitable. Things are tracked along the way, as Attilio was saying, with conversion tracking and some other systems. And that's kind of segments of ad spend that we see working for our practices right now.
Yeah, I'll give one last little quick note. There's a lot of variables when it comes to those spends, and so I think we need to keep in mind that just having people give you a phone call doesn't mean anything if you never pick up the phone. And so if you're having people who are opting in or calling you, right, you could spend all the money you want in the world, but if you don't pick up the phone, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so keep that in mind. And I'll also say there's also like a level of skill to this, right? So
Yeah.
there's skill and there's aptitude and other things. And so every business is just a little bit different. And depending on just how effective you are at working with cold audiences or how effective you are at listening and innovating on what you're listening to. So when people are complaining or having problems or don't want to work with you, how good are you at maybe overcoming those objections or working with them in a way, or creating a higher value process, or maybe a more intuitive process so that they end up working with you anyway? All of those things
Yeah.
end up affecting your end spend.
So if you liked our conversation today on the golden referral ratio, go ahead and pop that share button and make sure that a couple other counselors in your network have access to the same information. We'll chat with you guys next time.